Happy Monday, happy holidays, and welcome to a special edition of Motorsports Today, episode 215 here on TikTok Live, also available YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We got a full panel for you tonight. I'm Eddie Kalegi, Adam Tropper, Tim Moore, Jeffrey Hrunka's back. TCB is here with us as well. Reminder, every episode of Motorsports Today powered by SeatGeek. Use the code MTODAY, MTODAY, $20 off your first purchase at checkout. It's our final full week of shows for 2025, and as we always do, we do some fun stuff to wrap up the year. Friday, we'll have our traditional finale where we will count down our top 10 motorsports moments of the year, and we will have that for you live at 12 o'clock on WRSU.org. But something a little different I felt like we might as well do this year for the content, for the brand, we do our own awards. And the Oscars exist, the Tonys exist, Tim Moore exists, so why don't we call it the Timmys? So we have the Timmys this year, and we will be getting to that in just a couple of minutes. But something I wanted to touch on before that, because with all the news with the lawsuit, we didn't really get too much time to talk about it on Friday's show. And since we do have Jeffrey here, I wanted to get his input. The thoughts on this INDYCAR officiating thing, because Tim, I did see the tweet that you mentioned about how, Ray Evernham becoming an official is like Tony Soprano becoming the head of the FBI, which I think is very funny. But at the same time, they have serial criminals that they turn into like informants in the FBI, so you never know. But I do think from, a wider area, bringing in someone who knows the sport well, bringing in someone from FIA, I think is beneficial. And having people that are not affiliated with Penske to officiate, especially given things that have happened the last couple of years, I feel like it's still a positive move.
100%. And
Oh, I was making sure he was asking you because I know you mentioned me. No, I got you. Go
yeah, you
ahead.
mentioned both of those. 100%. This move needed to be made to grow the sport because we can see, such as in NASCAR, when a sport has controversy, it tears everyone apart, right? And I know while Penske doesn't have direct oversight on the decisions made, it still creates that kind of lingering feeling of, well, what if he has influence? What if people are scared to go against him? So really good move, and it makes IndyCar more legitimate for the future. And if you want to grow this sport, this is what you have to do, right? They're partnering with the FIA, only thing they're really partnering with them on, and just getting people who want to make the sport better. And I guess it's kind of in a way also good that they don't have a direct IndyCar background, but having motorsports background can further help just make IndyCar whole. And you're allowing people in the sport to select, okay, we trust these guys to make the decisions. They have the input we desire, and they're trusted in the industry. So really good move by IndyCar. And now when you look at this decision being made, and now the FIA allow switching to super license points for IndyCar, a really good offseason to make IndyCar it's almost a step above F2, because that's really been the tossing point. That's why we saw Colin Herta go over there. Although with the new rules, he only needed one FP1 session to get all 40 super license points. So it sucks for Colin Herta, but all around, great decision, makes the sport more legitimate. And this is how you add consistency in the sport. And I've had the ability to cover IndyCar this year, and there's been a lot of controversial decisions. And so we can actually create guidelines on what constitutes this over that. And I think this is something NASCAR needs to pick up and take for themselves of what IndyCar is doing. Because if you want more consistency officiating, this is what you have to do. And so NASCAR needs to take this play out of IndyCar's book.
Yeah, 100% good way to sum it up. Tyrell, your thoughts? Because I'm glad you brought up the Herta point too, because we didn't really talk about that on Friday, but now all of a sudden, in a way, it kind of just turns into a lateral move for him with this restructuring of the super license points going to F2. Though I do think big picture, just being present, being, at the racetrack every single week when F1 is also there is key for him if he wants to actually get a Cadillac seat from one of these older drivers at some point soon.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Jeffrey. This is really stepping up IndyCar big time. I feel like it is almost, yeah, I really do agree. Actually, it is almost like a step over F2 now, and this is really making IndyCar feel important again, right? Like now you're hearing a lot more with the super license, obviously with the the coming of Cadillac and F1, and now you hear guys going to F1, F2, whatever, there's testing in Well, sorry, you've got the guy, I forgot who it was, Mick Schumacher, right? I believe. Yep, Mick Schumacher left F1, now he's going to IndyCar, and it's just seeming like sorry, not oval. Open wheel racing in America is becoming big again, right? And now this is becoming like almost another feeder series, almost to F1. And yeah, for Colton Herta, I mean, it's I honestly I was a Colton Herta fan, so I'm kind of sad to see him, in the position he's in. But yeah, it's really cool to see that the FIA is stepping up and really taking a little bit more of a foot into IndyCar, and yeah, we'll see what happens with that. It's really cool. It's happening though.
Yeah. Overall, good positive ending to the season. You had a fun F1 championship, NASCAR settling the lawsuit, IndyCar with a lot of positive moves in the offseason, which makes our final couple of episodes more exciting for us for sure. But I'm going to start with a negative as we get into the first annual Timmys. We have 8 awards to give out. And the first one this year is biggest controversy. So the nominees are as follows: the Penske attenuator penalties at the Indianapolis 500, the safety marshals that were on the track in 2 separate F1 races under green this year, NASCAR playoffs crowning undeserving champions. Tropper and I were at the center of that in Phoenix last month. McLaren's internal conflicts, whether that be Lando versus Piastri or both of them getting mad at Zach Brown, the NASCAR antitrust lawsuit, or Austin Hill intentionally wrecking his opponents. So the winner with 67% of the vote, which, by the way, I should clarify, yes, 67% of the vote, I should clarify, voted on by our staff. So it's our staff. We have all voted on it. We've all sent in our votes. And the winner is the NASCAR antitrust lawsuit. So the biggest controversy of the years, thankfully, has been mostly settled. It has caused a lot of controversy on this show, too. And with Tim, with people on social media, with you. So no shock that the first ever Timmy goes to the thing that got you fighting with a bunch of NASCAR fans on social media over the last few weeks. And now Tim doesn't have his mic. Timmy.
There we go. I yanked the cord out. I got so excited. The fact that I said on Friday, I said, thank God. And you saw the audio clip if you saw it here on TikTok, or if you saw it as well, on YouTube and so on any of our shorts. Thank God this lawsuit is over. And I'm going to be honest with you, Eddie. I'd love to go deeper into it. I love engaging with our NASCAR fans, but I'm done with it. It's over with. I'm on to 2026, and I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Is that fair?
I think it's fair. So that got the majority of the votes. I do think though I personally voted for the antitrust lawsuit, which I imagine a lot of people in this Zoom call did as well. But the one that I think is getting downplayed a little bit, Jeffrey, is the fact that you had the most successful team in IndyCar get penalized with the attenuators. And I think the part that everybody forgets about, too, is when all those videos started circulating from the museum at IMS, where they're looking back at Newgarden's car that won the previous year, and he had the exact same substance on the attenuator that his car had this year. So, I mean, I would have considered voting for that one, too.
It was a great storyline that week in IndyCar. I mean, qualifying is what makes the Indy 500 the Indy 500, and arguably, I think that was better than the race itself because of all the storylines. You have Robert Schwartzman get pole that day, but unfortunately for him, I think that was greatly overshadowed by whatever's happening with Penske this year, because they like to cheat every year now apparently. But I love seeing everyone trying to do their best investigative skills on Twitter. That was probably my favorite aspect of all this going down. And when you mentioned Joseph Newgarden had the same issue, but what I think it goes back to the good old saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And what matters to Penske right now seems to be their Indy 500 program. A shame it happened that day, but definitely a controversy that these officials need to look more into. And let's be honest, this was kind of the main aspect of what we talked about earlier, getting independent officiating, because this was the second instance that happened in a row, and Penske was surrounded in controversy on how, what if this happens again? And guess what? Penske fired nearly their whole upper staff management team that worked inside their IndyCar race team, and it kind of set Team Penske back for the majority of that season after already having a rough start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and Eddie, can I just say I ended up voting for the trial, obviously, as the biggest controversy. But what we're forgetting is the attenuator. That's something that officiating happened after the fact. The antitrust, obviously, off the track. I was very, very close to voting Austin Hill, Michael McDowell, Watkins Glenn as the biggest controversy. And you remember we talked about that at length, myself, you, and Tim, over the summer about Austin Hill's just behavior, why he's not in Cup for a reason. I feel it didn't win the Timmy, but I think we should talk about, an on-track controversy because that caused 15 cars, one of the most violent wrecks we've ever seen at Watkins Glen. I just have to point that out as an honorable mention.
well, I'm glad you foreshadowed it because it's going to come back up in conversation with one of the other awards in a few minutes. So don't you worry about that. Yeah.
I was going to say, can I also say the F1 related thing with officials being on the track? I wouldn't even say it's controversial, just mind-numbing. Like, why? It still makes me
The
just
fact that
like,
it
why?
happened twice.
Yeah, it's in back-to-back weeks, right?
Yeah, well, I think it was 2 out of 3 races, but still,
Three, yes.
and the fact that the Mexican Racing Federation was blaming Liam Lawson for driving unsafely. You quite literally had human beings walking across the racetrack under green. How is that the fault of the driver?
Well, I'll put it this way. If I had a nickel for every time an F1 safety crew was on the track during green flag conditions, I had 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Vegas was arguably worse though, because it's
Yeah, you
coming
had the
down
whole
that
pack.
straightaway. Like I look at the clip, and the lap before you have Lando Norris ship it into turn 1, and then you just see them all where Lando Norris shipped it off. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was.
Just a reminder, Eddie, by the way, we talked about this on Friday, the good old saying that the FIA is so consistent from, the brand new FIA representation of IndyCar, I think tends to tell another tale of exactly why that's not the case.
Yeah. But Tropper, I'll let you sum up this point because I do want to shout out. You got the shirt on. This is your final week at Columbia. And the one thing that I think the antitrust lawsuit, unlike other things, especially in the last week because of Michael Jordan, it's kind of transcended the other controversies because it's become mainstream. And a lot of people knew about this. Just the fact that you had teams challenging a sport in a court of law is something that I know only happens in NASCAR because of the way it's structured, but it's still unprecedented, and that's why it was such a big deal. And also the fact that it carried over more than a year.
Absolutely, and that's an understatement. I mean, to see the impact that it's had on the entire sport, the drivers, sponsors, even, and us as the media, because we're, for better or for worse, stuck covering it for over a year, and seeing it from the business end too, or at least trying to. As you said, thank you very much. Last week at Columbia here, so like throughout this program and what I've learned, back in October, Steve Phelps came to talk to us. We didn't really talk about the antitrust lawsuit, some things. Just not the topic of discussion and not the right time, but just kind of to see from both ends, from upper management all the way down to Denny Hamlin's perspective. So many factors went into this, and really the easiest way to sum it up is just thank God it's over. Thank God everyone can move on. Who knows what's going to happen with NASCAR now and management. The Franz family obviously gets to keep NASCAR staying around under their supervision. We don't know what's going to happen with Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, some other leadership positions. Hopefully it works out for everyone, but that's the easiest way to put it. And frankly, there's nothing else to say than thank God 2025 is over.
But that was our biggest controversy. We're going to move on to the second Timmy, which on the flip side is the best underdog story. So there wasn't a ton of underdog winners. And again, for anybody who's watching this is like, oh, why don't you talk about this from IMSA or Tony Stewart won an NHRA? No, we don't cover that. We cover NASCAR, IndyCar, and F1. That's our spectrum. That's what we're choosing from. So I'm sorry if I'm forgetting a story from a sport that I don't really follow. But our nominees for best underdog story are Christian Rasmussen passing Alex Palou to win at Milwaukee for his first career win. Nico Hulkenberg's first podium in more than a decade at Silverstone for Kick Sauber. Williams' 2025 F1 season where they had 3 podiums, their most points in 11 years. Robert Schwartzman claiming the Indy 500 pole as a rookie for Prema in their first attempt. Josh Berry's first career NASCAR Cup Series win at Las Vegas. and Bubba Wallace winning the Brickyard 400. This one was not particularly close either. At 55% of the vote, the Timmy is going to go to Prema and Robert Schwartzman for winning the poll for the Indy 500, and our IndyCar contributor Jeffrey Hrunka is fired up. I am one of the 5 people who voted for this because, I'm sorry, there are some cool accomplishments. I really liked Rasmussen's win. The backmarker F1 teams had some fun stories throughout this year. A lot of that was in rain races, but still. Josh Berry getting a cup win was awesome too. But you had Robert Schwartzman, who had never run an oval before. You had Prema, a team that was unsponsored and had never competed at the Indy 500, Jeffrey. And I know that Penske had its penalties, but even still, Schwartzman was the fastest car, and it was becoming apparent throughout the week, and he's outrunning O'Ward, he's outrunning Palou, and then in the Fast Six, he clutched up, had pretty much a perfect 4 laps. And I know the race didn't go great for him, and he ended up running over his pit crew, and then who knows what even the future of Prema is, but that moment was great. And that moment really, if we're talking about underdogs, besides Trevor Bayne winning the Daytona 500, I really can't think of any others that parallel this because it was just such a shock.
I mean, you can't even describe this underdog story. The only uncharted team, they don't even have data going into the Indy 500. They have their first team overseas, and Robert Schwartzman's first year at Prema. I mean, all these things combined for a great underdog story. If we had a lot more cars and they were battling to just get in the race, this would be a story alone. But somehow, in some way, he takes on the Giants, gets pole. I don't want to make stick and ball comparisons to motorsports, but this is essentially the Giants taking on the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? No one knows how they got there, but they did it, right? And I know he didn't get the race he wanted to, but this carried so much momentum for their oval program throughout the rest of the season. At Worldwide Technology Raceway, Robert Schwartzman was running top 10 nearly all night, and this carried through him. Even at Iowa, he was up front as well. So really, a really good moment. And this is the true definition of underdog, right? You can talk about Williams' resurgence. We've kind of highlighted it slowly but surely. Or really, any midfield battle on the grid, or Nico Hulkenberg finally getting that podium. But Hulkenberg's been at that for years. These teams have been trying to build up their program for years. This is a 1 year, 1 shot, 1 opportunity, and Prema made the most of it. And I'm so glad they got this award.
Now, one other one I do want to mention, Tyrell, because you did vote for him, and I think it does deserve some consideration. Bubba Wallace winning Indianapolis, I think a lot of people forget. That was right in the midst of when the rumors came around that they were going to have their charters stripped. 23XI was not having a great year up to that point. We know Tyler Reddick had a tough season. Bubba had a really bad stretch with a whole bunch of DNFs through April and May. I know he turned things around after that win. Great end to the regular season. Really good playoff run. If it wasn't for Denny running into him, he would have ended up in the round of 8. But I don't think anybody really saw that coming, especially in the way it did. It's not like Bubba lucked into that victory at all. He was fast the whole race and straight up outran Larson, Hamlin, Bell, Byron, all the heavy hitters down the stretch.
Yeah, totally. And in that race, if I remember correctly, he was kind of like 5th or 6th, and then he had a really good stop, got out front, and just ran away with it. Well, then it rained, and then had the 2 restarts to 2. But yeah, Eddie, I want to say like this. I almost feel like it isn't an underdog because like we almost expect him to win a race, right? Like we expect that team, maybe not 35 car, but the 45 and the 23 to go out there and win races, and that's kind of like what we expect. So yes, I know he hadn't won in about like 3 years, but that was definitely it was refreshing to see. I I do kind of want to call it an underdog victory in a way, but I will be honest, it was more of like maybe a NASCAR bias vote for me. I do feel like the premise story was very good. I do remember watching like the last couple laps and seeing him drive away with it to win the race. But yeah, again, it was, I know he hasn't won in a long time, and it was really cool to see, obviously, for that team and just for Bubba and to win a Brickyard. I mean, that's a huge thing to even beat Larson after, racing in the Indy 500 and not going so well, and then outdueling him in a restart. So yeah, it was really cool to see.
So we're going to go to our third Timmy now, which was already referenced. The wildest wreck of the season. So this one, this and one other category, I expanded to 8 nominees just because there were a lot of good ones. So wildest wreck of 2025, and again, if there was some crazy crash, I know John Force had a wild wreck in NHRA, but IMSA probably had some crazy things too. But again, the 3 series we cover are NASCAR, F1, and IndyCar, and that's what we're pulling from here. So the nominees for the TIMMY for wildest wreck of 2025 are Ryan Preece's Daytona 500 flip, Joseph Newgarden's Gateway flip, which I know Jeffrey and Riley were there for. It's the first time Motorsports Today was at a race where there was a flip. The second time was another one of our nominees, Zane Smith randomly flipping at Kansas Speedway in the fall. Gabriel Bortoletto's huge crash at Sao Paulo in the sprint race a few weeks ago. The 15-car pileup with Austin Hill, Michael McDowell at Watkins Glen, the same race. Connor Zilisch fell off his car. Louis Foster's suspension breaking and the huge hit for him and Felix Rosenquist at Detroit. I combined Colton Herta and Scotty McLaughlin's flips in Indy 500 practice because they were kind of the same deal. And then Yuki Tsunoda's flip in Imola practice. So those are our nominees. And the TIMMY for the wildest wreck of the year is going to go to Austin Hill, Michael McDowell, 15-car crash, which... Listen, there were some unbelievable flips. I still cannot believe, Tim, that Ryan Preece had a front blowover in the Daytona 500. The Bortoletto crash was violent. The Newgarden crash was unexpected. But this Watkins Glen crash, the fact that it played out the way it did, especially with the circumstances throughout that week, and the amount of cars that were involved, the amount of people that took hard hits, Josh Bilicki basically got launched in the air by somebody because everybody ARCA braked into the crash. It was the most, and if we're going to say wild wreck, even though nobody flipped, to me it fits the bill.
Yeah, no, I mean, it comes down, though, again, to a decision where it just didn't make sense in regards to just how it happened. And, in a way, I still kind of defend Austin Hill on this, where I felt like he was outside of McDowell, and yeah, you could say he could lift or so on, but I felt like he just simply ran out of room, and it's guys racing for the win at the end. And then to see the fact of the matter that Watkins Glen still has the spacing, I guess you could say, of what that track has over its, after the chicane, setting up for the final 2 corners, to me is a little bit ridiculous. And to see all those cars just go out there, collide, not be able to stop, I mean, it was definitely something surreal. And to be honest with you, to me, I think the only close wreck in that category, right, that maybe to me came to it was the Ryan Preece crash in the Daytona 500, just because it was something unique, right, where you saw the car take off like an airplane almost, which is just something out of the norm. So my point is that, yeah, there may not have been a flip in this crash, but you saw something you don't usually see at a road course, and it had to do with certain circumstances that led to it. And regardless if you're a fan of Austin Hill or not, I don't know. I still side that it's not his fault, but that's just me. And either way, it was a glorious, glorious crash on a Saturday where that's, by the way, a very forgotten incident, because what was remembered after the race was Connor Zilisch falling off and sliding off his window net before, what is it, breaking his car? I don't even remember at this point now. Collarbone, thank you. So that's what was most remembered.
Well, I think Tropper, just to sum it up, what's interesting with a lot of the ones that we came down to was there was a lot of unexpected wrecks. This was one of them, and this was a year of that. It's not like there's a bunch of, Talladega big ones, big crashes on the final lap. I know Preece's was towards the end of a Daytona race, but you got crashes in sprints. You have Joseph Newgarden from the lead where they show the little interstitial of Joseph Newgarden, and then all of a sudden they cut to him upside down while he's leading, and it looks like he's finally going to turn the season around. This one came out of nowhere. Zane Smith flipping, when I saw that, I was like, what just happened? I mean, there was just a lot of unexpected wrecks this year, which, I mean, might just be a circumstantial, but it's something worth noting.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, because you look at all the other ones and they're really isolated incidents. It's someone going for the win. It's a freak accident, but it's usually a single car or maybe 2 to 3 car incident that led to it. Whereas the reason I voted for Austin Hill one personally is, once again, Tim, regardless of intentionality or not, the circumstances and the storylines behind it on that very narrow part of the racetrack, leading to a 15-car wreck where you couldn't even see in front of you. And as you said, in Josh Bilicki's case, that one just, I think it's just the way it played out and the fact that so many cars ended up being affected from it. You didn't need a flip or anything. It reminded me of the David Rudiman like crazy flip at that same spot, but just the fact that it was such a massive wreck with not necessarily playoff implications, but just so many cars involved. That's what did it for me.
Say, Tropper, I just want to correct you. It actually was, so the double zeros crash was going up turn one. That crash is actually Michael McDowell's ironic crash where they had that big crash.
You're right.
Coming out of the carousel. So no, but I just think that, like, it's funny because if you want to compare the two crashes, they played out kind of the same exact way. The only difference is, I guess you could say, the rear suspension and rear tire and everything wasn't stuck in the fencing of Michael or from Michael McDowell this time. But I mean, McDowell's had some couple really, really hard hits in that sector of the course, which again, it just blows my mind still. I understand having the runoff and everything, and it feels bad because, again, Watkins Glen's my home track, technically, even though I consider it to be Pocono. But it's just, I don't know, to me, it's the worst road course on the schedule every year for the Cup Series. And also, to me, in my opinion, the spacing just doesn't make sense to me. That is the most dangerous track they can go to for the potential calamity. Like the guardrails and everything, they just got to fix it. I don't understand why they can't change the spacing is all.
I totally agree. Like, I don't understand how they are, how are we still racing at a track that has guardrails like in 2025? I understand it's Watkins Glen though, but it just still has not made sense to me. Like, we've seen so many bad crashes there. I remember Jeff Gordon hurt his back there, I think in 2009 when they wrecked there, and then Newman got destroyed there one year. And then you said the McDowell wreck, which actually I actually saw a photo recently of that car where it was actually literally severed in half. But still, I mean, that huge crash happened. Yes, it was crazy to see, but it still doesn't make sense to me, Tim. I'm totally agree with you. Like, I don't understand how we're still racing there with guardrails, and how do we not have any like type of safer barrier or something there, you know?
Yeah. So the only things in what, turn one and then the bus stop, or the bus stop, and I don't think there's barriers. Well, I guess you could say in the outer carousel, but that's like all tires and everything.
But you have the longest straightaway on the track has these guardrails that jet out at different points too. It's like you're waiting for disaster. That's what happened this year. And if anything for Watkins Glen, they're probably not going to get safety barriers, but they do get a TIMMY for producing the wildest wreck of 2025. So we have 5 more awards to go. These are some of the more juicy ones. So let's get into best race. So this is another one where I went with 8 nominees, picked a few from each of the 3 series. So the nominees for best race are the Coke 600, Ross Chastain winning from William Byron. The Summer Atlanta race had the big crash, then Great Pack Racing, Chase Elliott slips through, picks him off one at a time, gets himself into the playoffs. The Kansas playoff race, which we were there to cover, wild move at the end. Denny Hamlin hits Bubba Wallace. Chase Elliott slips through the win. Zane Smith flips. Lots of stuff goes down there. IndyCar Gateway, we were also there to cover. Joseph Newgarden's flip we talked about. Kyle Kirkwood stealing a win. Alex Palou almost stole it from him at the end too. Indy 500, I wouldn't say it was the best this year compared to the last couple of years, but it was still a very solid Indianapolis 500. And Alex Palou finally got that oval win en route to his championship. Silverstone Grand Prix, craziness. Max Verstappen going off the road in the rain. Australian Grand Prix, craziness. Both McLarens going off the road in the rain. And then Abu Dhabi, lots of stories. 3 drivers going for the championship, and Lando Norris doing just enough to win it. So those are your nominees. And the winner, it was 4 votes versus 3. Summer Atlanta gets the TIMMY. I knew Jeffrey was going to be upset. Jeffrey, I am with you. I think we are 2 of the 3 people that voted for IndyCar Gateway. It's very close, but my thing that just frustrated me about the Summer Atlanta race is, and I know it was a great finish, and maybe the fact that there were fewer cars out there at the end is what helped the racing product, but I just can't vote for the best race of the year to be a race where you lost half the field with 200 laps to go. And that was my rationale in deciding between these 2 races.
Can I add something?
Yes.
And I respect every nominee. I don't want to put everything towards them. They deserve to be here. But why are we voting for a plate racing, which we've seen a multitude of drivers come out and say requires no skill, or not? It requires skill, but not as it used to. This is an illegitimate nominee because it's manufactured racing. When you look at Gateway, I know you had everything you would want out of an IndyCar race, back under the lights. Well, you had the big wreck, but you had Christian Rasmussen go to the field 3 times. He would have won that race, but he kept coming back. There's one storyline. Connor Daly had a showing for himself, led a bunch of laps. You had Pato O'Ward dicing it up with him. Multitude of pit strategies in an underdog full top 10 when you still have the majority of favorites still in the race. I mean, what else do you want out of a race? But when you look at Atlanta, it's manufactured racing, and it only became good because of one wreck. When you look at the IndyCar race at Gateway, the race was competitive, and that one wreck was one car, and it didn't take away from the racing. So I disagree with the committee on this decision. I just think they should have looked into the decision a little bit more.
You can't forget, Gateway was also the race where Devlin DeFrancesco and the camera operator collided in the little box.
Exactly.
And
so many things happened. It speaks for itself.
Yes. So that's why I voted for that. Tim, I'm pretty sure you were one of the Atlanta voters. So what was your rationale here?
I mean, let's put it like this. Remember, I was at Kansas, and I thought Kansas was a really good race. And I said it's the best racetrack on the schedule every single year. But there is something about Atlanta when the lights come on that the racing is simply great. And you may not have liked the winner. And Jeffrey, I understand your argument about manufacturer racing, but handling comes into effect in Atlanta. And it wasn't just somebody dominating the race or a bunch of lead changes that made it great. It was, yes, I understand it was a big wreck, but after that big wreck, it wasn't like, oh my God, these guys took a step back and started relaxing. They raced harder. And that's the thing about Atlanta, that it just stands out. It is different from other tracks. Guys were to the edge. And at the end of the day, too, I mean, you looked at it. I would argue throughout the night, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman in particular, they had the 2 best cars in field. Chase Elliott made the move that mattered. And Brad Keselowski, unfortunately, just didn't have the run when he needed to. There was a lot of really good storylines in that race. Another thing you have to consider, where you had I think it was 5 of the top 7, maybe 6 of the top 7 at the time, if I recall. If I'm not, I apologize. But they were all looking for a win to make the playoffs. And Gateway, I understand, again, that it's a technical racetrack and there's a lot of really good stories. I was rooting for David Malukas to win that race, by the way. It ended up just not working out that way. And, Rasmussen's, move and everything was spectacular. But, I mean, when you talk about a great race from start to finish, and by the way, too, just a reminder, they raced on a Saturday night. They had to come off the heels of what was a bad truck race at Lime Rock, and then a very fun ARCA Menards race at Lime Rock that same exact day. So all I'm saying is that you had 3 races in one day, and that's the race that delivered. You can't do that very often in NASCAR, and they simply delivered in prime time. That's all I'm saying.
One more thing, right? I got 2 stances on why we could switch your vote tonight, Tim. And I know this is unprecedented to switch your vote when the winner's already been announced. But as you said yourself, a very lackluster ARCA Menards race that you were at. So I think that could have really put your scale off on how good.
Yeah, but the ARCA Menards race it was at Lime Rock. It wasn't at Atlanta.
Yeah, but
totally
you were at
across
Lime
the
Rock
country.
To watch that race. So
I understand that, but my point is that Atlanta delivered. And that's what makes it stand out from the pressure of what it had to deal throughout the day. And again, the quality of racing was really, really good. And by the way, too, that was at a time during the NASCAR season where, remember, Eddie, we talked about the start of the year, where it was like, oh my gosh, it was banger after banger after banger of races.
Yeah,
and then we hit a dry spell.
Yeah.
I say we hit a really big dry spell. And that Atlanta race, in my opinion, is what restarted and kickstarted a really, really huge summer. Like, we were talking about the Brickyard 400 and Bubba Wallace just a couple minutes ago, even though he didn't win the award, right? We forget about the Chicago Street Course race where I chewed him out for just not thinking with his head like 2 weeks before that. That whole span of Atlanta, Chicago Street Course, the Brickyard, everything, those were really, really good races, and why I feel like they should be rewarded. Nothing against IndyCar again in Gateway, because again, you put him under the lights, you have great racing. But that Atlanta race from start to finish, it hit a level and it just never slowed down. And it was like I was watching a wrestling match. Honest to God. Honest to God.
I'll leave it at that because we do have 4 more awards to get to. But again, this was a hotly contested one, and we're gonna have another one that's very hotly contested coming up soon. But I'm gonna go to one that had a lot more agreements as we get to some driver specific ones. 4 down, 4 to go here on Motorsports Today, powered by SeatGeek. Our next Timmy goes to Most Improved Driver. I really like this award in the NBA. Adam Silver's made a lot of bad decisions in the NBA. One of them that was good was adding Most Improved Player. I think that's much better phrasing than Comeback Player of the Year in the NFL, because Most Improved, it's just clearly who got better from the year before. Comeback Player of the Year makes no sense. Are they coming back from being bad, from retiring and having 10 kids like Phillip Rivers, being injured, dying in the field?
I've made the Comeback Player of the Year award watch list for the NCAA. I can say we're talking about injured players. I understand the point of an award is different, but just for clarification, we are talking about injured players when it's Comeback Player of the Award. Most Improved, you could be on the field, but you got better.
Yes, but the NFL does Comeback Player of the Year sometimes based on performance as well, or cardiac arrest. Anyway, and Phillip Rivers.
Hold on, Joe Flacco won that award, did he not?
I thought they were co.
I thought Baker won it, no?
I could have
long story
sworn
short,
Joe
the
Flacco won
NCAA
it.
actually is doing something better than the NFL for once in that regard.
Yes.
How they do the award.
Yes, but Most Improved Player, I think, does it better, and we're not talking about injuries. We're not talking about Connor Zilish here. We're talking about Most Improved Driver. So here are our nominees. Lando Norris, F1 champion. His teammate Oscar Piastri, 7 wins on the season, was in contention for the title heading into the final race of the year. Christian Lundgaard, really impressive season, was 3rd place in IndyCar points for a good part of the season with McLaren. Christian Rasmussen, we've talked about him, became an ace on the ovals, won at Milwaukee. Chase Briscoe, first year with Joe Gibbs Racing, gets all the way to the Final 4. And SVG, I mean, he did get a lot better at ovals as the year went on, and 5 wins in Cup is 5 wins in Cup. But our Most Improved Driver, 6-7% of the vote, winning it, Chase Briscoe in that 19 car, is the Most Improved Driver. Tyrell, I know you've been very high on Toyota all year. You thought they were going to get a all Toyota Final 4, which didn't happen, but Briscoe did make it to the Championship 4. And I mean, being at the track with Tropper, I was just so amazed. We were talking about Rasmussen's comeback at Gateway a few minutes ago. Briscoe got sent to the back of the field twice at Phoenix and drove all the way back up into the top 10. And if things went a little differently on that restart, he was not far off from becoming a NASCAR champion, and if he didn't have those 2 mistakes, could have won the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, he dominated Darlington, absolutely dominated Darlington, and he also saved enough fuel, quote unquote, at Pocono to win too. So, yeah, and if he didn't perform this year in this car, I think that'd be the end of Chase Briscoe, right? I mean, I don't know how long his contract is, but he definitely stepped it up this year and obviously got into the Final 4. So I totally agree. Definitely Most Improved because, I mean, the year prior, he actually won at Darlington too. But to be able to knock off, what was it, I believe, 3 wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be able to knock off 3 wins after leaving Stewart-Haas, which was just, just nothing at the end, and come to Joe Gibbs Racing, win 3 races, and get to the Final 4, huge improvement.
Yeah,
and I was there for 2 of his wins. Obviously, Darlington, incredibly impressive. Like it was the first, I believe it was the first time, I don't remember stat in like 4 years where he won back to back with 2 different teams. But it absolutely incredible drive there. Pocono, Eddie, we were obviously there. That's when he broke through. But you could see the progression throughout the season. I mean, JGR equipment, you're expected to win, but there's obviously that learning curve, and Briscoe's been in that Stewart-Haas pipeline basically his entire career. So to see that progression, and he became a new Rocket Man. I mean, he had 7 poles, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, maybe that's the setup of the car, but at the same time, I mean, the driver has something to do with that. So maybe Briscoe, like the way you look at this award, maybe Briscoe already had it in him and the car was holding him back, but he was finally able to show his true potential, and this could just be the start of many years to come.
Yeah, well, credit to Chase Briscoe, certainly earn the honor, especially with all the pressure on him. I know he performed at Stewart Haas Racing, but he's replacing a guy in Martin Truex Jr. who was very competitive all the way until his final race with JGR. So when you got to go to that team and you don't have Gibbs as your last name, you're expected to perform, and he did that. And definitely deserving of most improved driver. But that takes us to one where there was a little bit of indecision. Most disappointing driver, someone who just had a tough year. And the nominees are Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, results speak for themselves. His teammate Charles Leclerc, frankly, didn't do much better. Joseph Newgarden, what a disastrous season for Penske. Newgarden's teammate, Scott McLaughlin, bad year too. Kyle Busch, winless again. And Alex Bowman, because, you know, he drives for Hendrick and he's just not good. I don't know where Tim's head went, but I know Alex Bowman. Tim thought that people were going to vote for Alex Bowman. Nobody's voting for Alex Bowman. The winner of... Oh, there's Tim's head.
So why was he on the list?
Just to bother you. So I couldn't think of another NASCAR driver. So, but the Timmy for most disappointing driver has two winners. The most disappointing drivers of 2025 are Scott McLaughlin and Kyle Busch. So they both get it. Now, here's my rationale where I went McLaughlin over Busch. We expected Kyle Busch to suck.
Did Colin vote for Kyle Busch?
Yes.
Oh, Colin. How could you do that?
But here's the, like, we knew Kyle Busch was going to, well, maybe Tropper didn't, but we knew Kyle Busch was going to be bad. I don't think anybody...
Why do you think I voted for him?
I don't think anybody thought, like, you could make the argument that any of those other five drivers, you could have expected a bad season from, that the circumstances were there. Scott McLaughlin was looking like a budding star, seemed to be getting better and better. And I think a lot of people thought that even Jeffrey, in spite of subpar equipment and just subpar execution from Penske this year, that he'd overcome it. But as a driver, getting in all these scuffles with backmarker drivers early in the season, then, of course, the most infamous moment, you crash before the Indy 500 even starts in the pace laps. You expected so much more from this guy. And two, let's not forget, Will Power got a win. Joseph Newgarden got a win at the end of the season. Scott McLaughlin did not. Scott McLaughlin's the one from Penske who wasn't able to win, and this just turned into a complete disaster of a season. So as bad as Kyle Busch was, I didn't expect much from him. I expected a lot more from McLaughlin, and he did not deliver at all.
Not at all. And you're right, that wreck defines his season, and I honestly think it carried with him throughout the rest of the year. But when you're in Team Penske equipment, you have one job, and that's to reach victory lane. And although he did finish top 10 in the standings, I mean, when you look at the whole, like the year as a whole, you have your alliance team beating out everyone but Will Power for the majority of the season. And Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden only didn't get ahead of those guys until the end of the year when they started to get everything together. And I don't think this is completely on Scott McLaughlin himself, right? Just not a good Indy 500 or really month of May at all. And when you fire three high personnel who have kind of been the anchor of your team for years now, it's going to be hard to, work with someone new. But I just after the season he had in 2024, he was poised to be the next championship threat, kind of the next Will Power in a way. And it's just really disappointing to see. And I think this speaks more of what he's honestly done in the past for Penske and why he's still there. And I mean, I know this is not part of why Scott McLaughlin's here, but when your best driver is leaving got kicked off your team, that should be a wake-up call for you, right? That should 100% be a wake-up call saying, my ride's not safe here. And so I do think he will perform next year, but he's gotta show something different. He's gotta at least be better than what David Malukas, who will be a rookie next year. And I think a lot of people have high hopes for David Malukas as well. So I just use this year as a reset, but it's sad to see a driver go from championship contender to barely inside the top 10.
Now, we do have to speak about the other co-winner of this. Tropper, I'll go to you as the resident Kyle Busch fan, because there's reason to be disappointed, especially what I would say is the end of last year. he showed some strides during the playoffs that I think made Kyle Busch fans optimistic heading into 2025. Let's not forget that Kansas race, he had the contact, Chase Briscoe, he could have won if that race went green last fall. But then we come out to the start of this year, and he's just completely irrelevant. And I mean, just making bad mistakes. The Mexico crash where he took everybody out in the rain. I mean, it was just a bad season. And he did have some flashes. He did show some speed. He even finished 6th place, I believe, at Phoenix to wrap up the year. But, I mean, it was never consistent. He could never build any momentum. And it would just be his own misfortunes, just qualifying bad. And I think the most damning part for Kyle Busch and why he won this, Austin Dillon at points this year was the significantly better RCR car, and this year he won again. Kyle Busch didn't, and this time you can actually say Austin Dillon won without wrecking people.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that come into play, and you're right. It goes back to last year. I mean, once he lost the winning streak for every season, he already has a all-time record, 19 seasons. But Kansas 24 was simply his last chance to be the first and probably only driver ever with the next gen parity to be able to say that you win in 20 consecutive NASCAR seasons in Cup. That is basically impossible, absolutely insane. And he was that close, 30 laps away at Kansas from having that, and it was ripped out of him. So I don't know how much of a morale killer it actually was, but going into 2025, you're right. You know, RCR isn't going to be great. You know, he's not going to be contending for 8 wins a season like he was back at JGR in 2018 as part of a big 3. But you thought that at the end of the day, or at least this was my rationale, maybe as a biased Kyle Busch fan, but I thought that it's not too illogical to think that he would have some flashes. But what, he had 2 top 5s for the entire season, stuff like that, and like none were on ovals, or I think he had 1 at top 5 at near the very end. Like, it was just plain bad. And I thought once he lost that winning streak for each season, maybe it's just like, okay, go for broke, just do whatever you can to get back into victory lane. And I think he was trying, but it obviously just didn't work. And we've talked about the struggles he's had with the next gen car. We've talked about the crew chief changes near the end of the year. I even talked to him about it at Phoenix, kind of like how that adjusts going into the next season. But with him being the number 2 driver for a 2-car team that's frankly not a good team right now, it's really a fall from grace for a first ballot Hall of Famer. And there's nothing else to say. I hope he gets back into victory lane soon, but that's why I said he's most disappointing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to take away from what we just talked about with Scott McLaughlin. That was absolutely brutal. But from the NASCAR end, you're right. The expectation was a little bit lower for Kyle Busch, but somehow he managed to lower the bar even more.
Yeah.
Adam, oh, sorry.
No.
I just want to give a little rebuttal here on the category disappointment, because how can you be disappointing when there's no expectations whatsoever?
That was
I would
my
argue
rationale.
Alex Bowman was more
what
disappointing because he had expectations. He's in a Hendrick car.
No.
But
You're
He has
trying
no
to-
expectations.
Exactly.
The only person with expectations for him is the guy sitting there.
But all I'm saying,
you're just trying to trigger me. The guy had
I'm
almost a
not,
borderline
because you're in a
career
Hendrick car and you
year.
make the playoffs, and he won last year, right? So there's some expectations to get back in victory lane.
Oh, yeah, but here's the thing. Here's my thing about Kyle Busch. I just want to refute this real quick because I know we're talking on time, but there is a certain expectation of low, though, when you think about it. I mean, by the way, Kyle Busch is going to his own lawsuit, which is a whole nother thing, by the way. And on top of it, like, yes, I understand. Okay, Kyle Busch didn't win a race the season prior to this one, and you felt like he needed to get his get back to finally find something. And the season prior, right? Like, I think about Kansas where Chase Briscoe has that collision. So I'm like, it felt like Kyle Busch was starting to get there. Darlington, right? He looked like he had a chance to win, and you thought you were going to find some momentum into 2025. And yet that didn't happen. And yet the Kyle Busch we are seeing, which I understand he's getting older, he's connecting more with the media, but I don't even know if I'm just going to say it on TikTok, and Eddie, if you have to bleep it out, I'm sorry. I've heard more about Kyle Busch's sex life this year than I've heard about anything else. And I really don't care. Listen, you do what you want to do, but like, that is where we are in 2025. We're hearing more about what Kyle Busch does in his bedroom than we hear about him as a race car driver. And that's upsetting because that's new standards of low. Like, I just don't know what to say. And it's nothing against Kyle, but I'm saying, like, that's what we're talking about. I mean, hello? Like, how is that not disappointing, Jeffrey?
Okay, we're talking about disappointing season, not a disappointing year
Yes,
for
but
Kyle
the
Busch as a
standard
whole,
of
okay?
like Kyle Busch, like the peak of him we're talking about is yes, and I understand
He
by the
hasn't been
way.
good since 2020. He hasn't. He's had one win a season, and he's been coasting on 20. This win in 2020 and 2021 because he was in good equipment. Parity reset everything, luckily for him. Got a lucky win at Talladega, two legitimate wins since then, but he has not been the same. I mean, I know he wants to stay in the sport. I know we're seeing like 44-year-old Philip Rivers come back, but it's time to hang it up. I mean, do you really want to ruin your legacy? And now you're not even dominating in the lower tier series as you did before. I mean,
He's
he's
not
not the
ruining
same
his
driver
legacy
at
though.
all.
It's just I think it's Richard Childress Racing. I really do think it is.
Exactly, but there's no expectations for him because he's done so bad. He's so far down to the ground in expectations that there's that like a top five everyone cheers about, right?
But you know what? There's something he can celebrate, and Scott McLaughlin too. That's that they win some big golden Timmors. They win Timmys for most disappointing driver. We got two more to go. These are probably equivalent if we're talking Grammys to Song of the Year, Album of the Year. To Oscars, I guess Best Motion Picture and Best Actor, Actress. We're gonna start with Team of the Year. So our nominees for Team of the Year are Chip Ganassi Racing, Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, Junior Motorsports, McLaren, and Mercedes. I know Red Bull had Verstappen. I just can't put Red Bull there when their second car is that bad. So those were our nominees. And our winner, this was a close one, but it is going to go to McLaren. They do edge out Joe Gibbs Racing.
I was going to say if McLaren didn't win, I was just going to clarify to add my vote to that because I accidentally voted for Joe Gibbs Racing. I just want that to be known right now. McLaren deserves to win this. No, like I was going through and rushing through because he sent it to me again because I thought I filled it out and I didn't. And I realized after I submitted, I voted for Joe Gibbs Racing. So I just want to make that known.
Well, don't worry, because McLaren still won anyway. So McLaren gets it over Joe Gibbs Racing. Listen, and Tyrell, I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing had a great year. You can't take that away. We're just talking about it with Briscoe. I mean, Hamlin, Bell, they were all great. Their Xfinity program wins the Owners' Championship. Sawalich gets significantly better as the year goes on. But let's be real here. And I know everybody knocks McLaren for all of the drama that's gone on behind closed doors. And, the fact that they nearly threw away the championship despite having the best car. But you can't take away the fact that they built the best car. I mean, they came into this year with the best car by far, and both of their drivers took it to its max potential. So as much as there's been issues, behind the scenes, and even the best teams have encountered that. Hendrick did with Jimmy and Jeff. Mercedes did with Lewis and Nico Rosberg. They overcame it. And you got to give credit to the team that won both now drivers and constructors and now are back-to-back constructors champs.
Yeah, and I believe they won almost half the races of the F1 calendar.
Yeah, 14 of the 24, so more than half.
Yeah, so more than half. Yeah, I mean, and they wrapped up constructors with like 6 or 7 races left in the season. So I mean, it was pretty much a no-brainer for me to vote McLaren this 6-7. Yeah, but it was a no-brainer.
I knew it was going to happen. I was hoping you guys would pick up on it.
There's been a lot of 6-7. I think Eddie said like there was like 3 or 4 of them. There were 3 or 4 winners over 6-7.
Yeah.
But yeah, long story short, they dominated the whole season. Yes, they almost threw away the championship, and yes, they almost wrecked each other to oblivion every single week for the past like 5 weeks. But all in all, I mean, like I said, what really drove it home for me was they wrapped up constructors like with 7 or 6 races left. I mean, that no one could catch them. It was all over with. So good job, McLaren, on the Timmy.
I love the intentional reversal there to avoid another 6-7, but but that is our Team of the Year, and now we get to the last award to wrap up the Timmys. It is Driver of the Year. Jeffrey is acting all nervous, like he is one of the nominees. But
I mean, he's wearing this full suit. I mean,
I know. We gotta give a shout out to the Jeffrey Hrunka fit for tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is He's dripped. He looks. I was saying this off air. He looks like either like security at a Lakers game or like a sports agent. And Tropper looks like he's gonna come like fix my sink leak. But
You know what? Say what you want, but I have
no, it's a nice
Columbia gear for my last week as an Ivy League student. I am gonna have a Columbia
No,
Masters.
I love the Columbia gear. It's the white T-shirt under the blue polo that's making me feel like I'm looking at a handyman right now.
You know what? I'll give you that. But you know, the Columbia blue is always a good look on me. What can I say?
It is. Yeah, you are radiant. So our nominees for the TIMMY for 2025 Driver of the Year are INDYCAR champion Alex Palou, F1 champion Lando Norris, NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Larson, F1 runner-up but wins leader Max Verstappen, NASCAR wins leader who probably should have won the championship Denny Hamlin, NASCAR Xfinity Series win record holder who should have won the championship too, Connor Zilisch. Craftsman Truck Series win record holder who did win the championship, Corey Heim. And 7-time winner who finished third in points, Oscar Piastri. I see TCB repping Heim. Jeffrey, of course, wants Alex Palou. 2 guys got 7 of the 9 votes. So it was 4-3. Between 2 people. Those 2 people were Alex Palou and Connor Zilisch. But only one of them is our Motorsports Today Driver of the Year for 2025. And it's going to go to Connor Zilisch.
What? What? Are you kidding me?
Okay, let me just give... I voted for Palou, but was between these 2. Well, and Lando Norris for like a split second, and then I was like, all right, Lando Norris almost fumbled the championship. Get him out of here. I know Zilisch didn't win the championship, but he went like 6 months without finishing outside the top 5. He suffered a back fracture at Talladega, comes back seamlessly, falls out of his car and breaks his collarbone, is back just fine 2 weeks later, makes his NASCAR Cup debut. He's doing it at such a young age. As much, and I voted for Alex Palou. I did, because he overcame the one thing that everybody hated on him for, which was that he couldn't win on an oval. And he did, and he won a lot, and he won a championship, and he clinched it with 2 races to spare. I voted for Alex Palou, but I get the justification for giving it to Connor Zilisch.
I think that's exactly the same that happened to me. Eddie, I think that's the same that happened to me. I mean, 18 consecutive top 5s. What was it? 12 wins. I mean, Zilisch's season, generational talent, but Alex Palou, I mean, IndyCar, we talk about parity. I've said this on the show many times that I believe IndyCar is the most versatile series there is between street courses, ovals like the Indy 500, regular road courses, and for Palou to truly dominate all of them. Ovals used to be his Achilles heel, and he won 500. How do you not go with Palou? I don't know. I mean, Zilisch, credit where credit's due, but
okay.
Wait, listen, Jeffrey, can I just ask you something real quick? Because here's the thing, right? You voted for the underdog moment of the year as the Indy 500 poll, correct?
Correct.
And you described it as one race, one opportunity. I'll give you this perception on it. If you're going to come from that perspective, Connor Zilisch went to more than 3/4 of these tracks they raced at this year, hadn't even spent time or seen them to get to 18, turn 19 in the middle of the season. Like, that is the reason why he earned my vote. That is remarkable. He stood out, he was immediately competitive, and he dominated a series. That is why, and it's nothing to Alex Palou. Alex Palou had a very great year. It was historic in many ways. But what Connor Zilisch did doesn't happen, and it never happens for an 18-year-old, especially in sport NASCAR, and it doesn't happen in racing, period. Alex Palou's won multiple titles. I understand that he had a record-setting year, but he'll break that record next year when he's got nobody to compete against next year, because he's that darn good, right? Connor Zilisch is moving on to the Cup Series with bigger, badder fish. The kid's 19. An 18-year-old doing the amount of dominance he had, it doesn't happen often, which is why it's got my vote. That's all I'm saying. You want to talk about one opportunity, one circumstance? That kid showed up to tracks he's never seen before and set a bar and a level that
Well,
you could
he
not
had
even
one
have
opportunity
anticipated.
with circumstance to win a championship, but he didn't excel at that. So if you want to use that argument, he had
Well,
one
regardless,
opportunity with
how much
circumstance,
weight
it
should
didn't
be
work.
taken that it was the second tier series? We
Exactly.
are talking.
Let's award the winner of F2 the best season, right? The lower tier, put him in a cup car right now. He won't do as well. I know
Yeah,
he's
but
got
how many? Hold on,
experience.
how many F1 drivers are running an F2? And then get back to me on that.
I don't know,
Think
but they
about
built
that.
their way up. But
Think
you're not
about
going to
that.
give. Okay, you're not going to give the
So is
second
Justin
tier
Allgaier not a Cup Series caliber driver running in the Xfinity Series?
No, he's not a Cup Series caliber.
Oh, he's not now.
He's a back
No,
marker.
so did we
That's
just forget
why
he was? Did we not forget how he just ran subbing for Kyle Larson in the Coke 600 last year? Did we just forget about the fact this man was about to go lap down and proceed to race?
I mean, it just shows how much of a degree of separation there is between both series. But let me talk about Alex Palou. I mean, when you have a guy who is the talking point every single race and versatility, okay, Connor Zilic can win at road courses, ovals here and there. But when you have Alex Palou week in and week out, dominating, getting pulls, topping practices, right? You don't see any other driver doing this. And he won the biggest race in motorsports on top of that. Oh, okay, my bad. Connor Zilic won at Pocono with Dale Jr. as his crew chief, right?
Yeah, we were there for that. That was
Why
a
are we
great win.
we're giving this guy the best driver of the year when he came in? When you use one race, one moment, he didn't even win his championship. He didn't even execute the championship at the end of the day, and that's because the
How old is Alex Palou?
That's the format.
How old is Alex Palou?
That doesn't matter. We're talking about
but it
the
does.
degree of
How many
dominance.
years has Alex
By
Palou been in
percentage,
IndyCar? Connor Zilic went from
he
racing.
dominated much more than Connor Zilic did.
Connor Zilic went from racing IMSA and all these other cars, and by the way, is more accomplished when you talk about winning big races
We're not
already
talking
in
about
his
more
young
accomplished.
career than Alex Palou is.
Or
By the
age.
way,
We're talking about
just a
season.
reminder on that. He's won more meaningful races in road racing than Alex Palou has ever won. So just
That
remember
argument
that.
doesn't matter. You've been okay. It's same with the Atlanta argument. You've been taking other races in effect around it. We're taking the season itself, and when you put the season side by side, Alex Palou only had 2 races where he did not finish inside the top 10. He only had 4 races where he wasn't in the top 5. He won the biggest race in motorsports. He dominated this season, and he won the championship with about 4 races left in the season. So when you want to talk about dominant, the most dominating driver, how can you not talk about Alex Palou? And this is arguments even worse when you look at F1. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris won bigger races than Connor Zilic. Why are we awarding this award to a second-tier series who may I let you know where 3 of his teammates were in the Final Four, because that's how bad the quality of competition was in the Xfinity Series this year, right? Kaulig Racing, who's usually a championship contender, wasn't up there.
Kaulig Racing is such a bad example, Jeffrey. They've gone downhill the last 3 years.
All I'm saying, you had about
AJ Allmendinger is most remembered this season
that could win the championship. You had about 8. And IndyCar parity is above all, and you had numerous contenders who could have won that championship and who are that competitive year in and year out.
Well,
and
you don't really have a driver. You don't have a driver like Connor Zilic who just like came in from a completely different like racing thing and just came in and dominated. Like he ran like a few Xfinity races in 2024, right? But then he came in and literally won 12 races. Like Kyle Busch can't do that.
For Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series, he can do that right now. I'm just saying.
If he never ran a NASCAR race before, he wouldn't be able to do that.
You said Kyle Busch could do that right now in the Xfinity Series. I'd like to remind you, he's gotten funded rides in the Truck Series over the past 2 years, and he's won one race in the last.
Yeah, but Spire Trucks isn't the same as Tricon.
Spire Trucks ain't the same as Junior Motorsports.
We can't sit here and sit under a rock and act like Spire's not funded in the lower level series like they are. They just may not be as high caliber.
Okay,
Jeffrey,
we're just bringing back SRX or IROC and putting both of them together. End of story.
But hold on, I just want to.
What does that have to do with anything?
Let's figure out which driver's better. IROC and XRX, similar equipment. Now that the antitrust trial's over, we could bring back one of the series and figure out who's the best driver.
Before we close out the show, Eddie, can I just make a point to what TCB made real quick, because I think it is important to note as well.
Sure.
What Corey Heim had this year was also remarkable, historic, and should be rewarded in many ways. But again, the reason why Connor Zilic jumps ahead of Corey Heim, in my opinion, is Corey Heim had how many years of experience in the Truck Series?
We're not factoring in experience. We're factoring in how
But
dominant
Alex
the season
Palou
was.
has as many years of experience in the IndyCar.
We're-
Alex Palou couldn't do what Connor Zilic did at 18 is all I'm saying. Corey Heim, his level of dominance, had he had done that his rookie first season in the Truck Series, I think it's no brainer he gets driver of the year. If Alex Palou did what he did in IndyCar this year, his first year in the NTT IndyCar Series, guess what? He deserves driver of the year. But in this case scenario, he doesn't, because Connor Zilic is that darn talented as a young kid, seeing tracks he had never seen before to perform to the level he had and to the degree he had is something remarkable. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to go out there and say it. My bold 2026 predictions: Connor Zilic will win a race in 2026 and he will be a playoff contender. May not be a championship contender, but the kid's that darn talented. And I'm telling you right now, he is the future of NASCAR. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot of debate. If you're watching this, comment below. Let us know who you would have voted for driver of the year between Alex Palou and Connor Zilic. But our staff voted, and it did go to Connor Zilic. So our driver of the year, just to, twist the knife in for Jeffrey, is someone who's not even from a first-tier series, and he didn't even win the championship in the second-tier series. But that is how it goes, and that is how the TIMMY Awards have been presented for 2025. Now, Friday, we will be back for one more episode before the holidays. We're going to be doing our annual Top 10 Best Motorsports Moments. You can catch that live at 12 o'clock on WRSU.org. TCB, I want to bid you a happy holidays and farewell. Your last show till January, but thank you for hopping aboard. It's been great to have you here on Mondays.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's been a lot of fun to actually get on here and debate, talk about the sports and the things that I love. So thank you for having me. Can't wait to be back next year.
So our video shows will return on January 12th. Our finale coming up for 2025 on Friday. Catch it at 12. Every episode archived YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, of course, powered by SeatGeek, code M Today, all caps, one word. Find us on the socials at Motorsports Today. Find us on the web at motorsportstoday.net. For Jeffrey Hrunka, Adam Tropper, Tim Moore, Tyrell Baker, I'm Eddie Kalegi, signing off of the TIMMY Awards special of Motorsports Today. We'll talk to you again for one final time in 2025 on Friday.